Her sentence was clean, cold, and surgical. "Ma'am, this area of the store is reserved for customers. If you'd like to wait, the service bench is outside." The saleswoman's hand, with impeccably red nails, pointed toward the door as if indicating the trash can. "My name is Lucas. I'm 29, and most of the time the world sees me as a typo. I dress in jeans, t-shirts of bands no one listens to anymore, and worn-out sneakers." And beside me, being held back by the invisible border of luxury, was 25-year-old Julia. To the saleswoman, the equation was simple. The modestly dressed girl was the employee. I, the slovenly boy, was the penniless boyfriend. We were both in the wrong place. What the saleswoman, in her French-perfumed arrogance, couldn't have known was that the tech company I'd founded in my old bedroom was worth more than the entire luxury conglomerate her store belonged to. And that Julia, the young woman she just tried to chase away, wasn't my employee in the traditional sense. She was the key to a problem all my money couldn't solve. Julia started working in my house 3 months ago. Not a mansion, but a modern, minimalist penthouse that still feels too big for me. She was hired as a housekeeper, responsible for keeping my domestic life from falling apart. I barely saw her. She was quiet, efficient, almost ethereal. But I noticed. I noticed the books she read at lunch, Dostoevsky, Clarice Lispector. I noticed the way she reorganized my chaotic bookshelf not by color, as a decorator would, but by literary period. I noticed her quiet intelligence, a dignity that shone brighter than any jewel in that store. I grew up on the other side of this border. My mother, Lucia, worked 2 cleaning jobs to support us while I, a skinny teenager, built my first software on a second-hand computer. I remember her hands, chapped from soap and bleach. I remember her exhaustion, but most of all, I remember her resilience. And I remember how the world treated her. I remember the looks of contempt, the people who spoke to her as if she were deaf or invisible. Each of those looks left a scar on me. My mother passed away before she saw my success, but the memory of her struggle is the operating system of my soul. And in Julia, in her youth, in her silent effort, I saw an echo of my mother. The reason we were in that store was a business challenge. I needed to close an investment deal with Europe's toughest negotiator, a woman known as the Empress. She was coming to Brazil the following week, and tradition dictated that I welcome her with a gift. But she was the kind of woman who needed nothing and was offended by trivial gifts. The gift had to be perfect, personal, elegant, and with a story. I, who considered choosing a t-shirt a complex task, was paralyzed. For days, I looked through catalogs, consulted assistants. Nothing. It was then that, in an act of desperation, I approached Julia. I explained the situation and, based on her literary sensibilities, asked what she would give a woman like that. She thought for a moment and said, "A woman who has everything no longer values an object. She values a gesture. This shop has a collection of silk scarves, hand-painted by artisans from a small village in Italy. Each one is unique and tells a story. It's a gift that says, I didn't buy the most expensive item, I looked for the most special." I was stunned. She not only knew about the scarves, but also understood the psychology behind the gift. Right then and there, I offered her a generous bonus to join me as my gift consultant. She shyly, but with a glint of interest in her eyes, accepted. And so the slovenly billionaire and the intellectual housekeeper entered the den of luxury fashion. From the moment we stepped onto the plush carpet, we were treated differently. The saleswoman, whose name tag read Veronica, spoke only to me, even though it was Julia who pointed out the pieces and explained the weave and origin of the fabrics. Veronica looked at me with a mixture of impatience and contempt, while she didn't even look at Julia. "Can you please not touch the pieces?" he asked at one point, when Julia dared to feel the texture of a bag. "Fingerprints are very difficult to remove." I felt my blood boil. The humiliation was subtle, constant, like a dripping hot torture. Julia, for her part, endured it with stoic grace, backing away, maintaining her composure, but I saw in her eyes the small flame of her self-confidence waver. She was becoming invisible again, just like my mother. That's when Julia spotted the tissue counter, at the back of the store, in a more private area. "It's over there, Lucas," she said, using my first name as I'd requested. But as she took a step toward the counter, Veronica moved, physically blocking her path. And then, the sentence. The sentence that detonated the nuclear reactor in my chest. "Ma'am, this area of the store is reserved for customers. If you'd like to wait for your boss, you can wait outside." Boss. She didn't even give me the benefit of the doubt. To her, the only possible relationship between us was that of boss and employee. And the employee, of course, should wait on the sidewalk. Julia froze. The insult was so direct, so brutal, there was no hiding it. Her face paled. I saw the mortification in her eyes. She was about to turn and leave, to accept defeat. It was at that moment that everything changed. I stepped forward, placing myself between them. I looked at Veronica, not with anger, but with cold curiosity, like a scientist observing a particularly nasty insect. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "You're not my employee, and I'm not her boss." Veronica raised an eyebrow. "Oh, no? And what are they then?" I said, stepping aside and gesturing toward Julia, "am her driver, the guy who carries her bag and pays the bill. The customer, the one with real intention to buy, the only one whose opinion matters here, is her." The saleswoman looked at Julia, at her simple flats and cotton dress, and gave a short, mocking laugh. "Oh, of course, and I'm the Queen of England. Listen, young man, we don't have time for games." "I assure you," I continued, my tone even colder, "I'm not joking." I walked over to the counter Veronica was guarding so fiercely. Julia was staring at me, her eyes wide, a mixture of panic and confusion. "Julia," I said, my voice now soft, completely ignoring the saleswoman. "Which one? Which handkerchief tells the right story?" Hesitantly, she approached. She pointed to one, folded in a silk box. It was an explosion of colors, blue, purple, and gold, that looked like a watercolor galaxy. "That one. It's called Florence Nocturne. The artisan is inspired by the stars." "It's perfect," I said. Then I turned to Veronica. "We'll take this one." She crossed her arms. "Great. The total is 19,000 reais. Will it be on the driver's card?" Sarcasm dripped from every syllable. "No," I replied. "It'll be on the house bill." I picked up my cell phone and dialed my bank relationship manager's number. I put it on speakerphone. "Miss Fontana, good morning. It's Lucas. I need you to authorize a debit to the Eclat boutique." "Yes, that's right. The amount is irrelevant. Actually, I changed my mind." "We're not just taking the scarf." I turned to Julia. "Julia, our consultation isn't over yet. Please point to every piece in this store that you consider genuinely beautiful. Every piece that tells a story, like the scarf." Julia, realizing something extraordinary was happening, began to walk around the store. She pointed to a dress, a boldly designed bag, a pair of classically cut shoes. With each item she pointed out, I said to Veronica, "That one too, and that one over there." The arrogance on the saleswoman's face began to turn into a grimace of confusion and panic. "Sir," she stammered, that will amount to an astronomical sum." "I know," I replied. "Miss Fontana, are you still there? The purchase will be for the entire inventory my friend chooses. Authorize a limit of, say, 8 digits. That should be enough to get started. The account name is LM Holding. Please spell that out for the store manager, who I imagine is on her way." And then, the unbelievable happened. The name LM Holding, my main company, was a thunderclap in the business world. The store manager, who had indeed come running from the back, nearly fell over upon hearing the name. She snatched the phone from Veronica's hand, mumbling apologies. I ignored the chaos. I continued my stroll with Julia. By the end, we had selected about 30 pieces. Clothes, bags, shoes. A collection curated not by price, but by Julia's discerning eye. "There," I said, turning to the manager who was now sweating. "We'll take all of this. Deliver it to this address." I wrote down the address of a women's shelter my foundation supports. And this scarf, I picked up the box of Florence Nocturne, goes with us now. The manager and Veronica hurried to pack the scarf in a luxury bag as if it were a sacred artifact. Oh, one more thing, I said, pausing at the door. I'd like to open a permanent line of credit at this store. For Miss Julia. With whatever limit she desires. She is, as of today, the official style consultant for all companies in the LM Holding Group. We left the store, leaving behind a trail of shock and panic. The day's resolution came in the silence of the car. Julia held the bag in her lap, but she didn't look at it. She looked at me. "Why did you do that, Lucas?" she asked, her voice low. "That humiliation, the way you—" "I didn't humiliate her," I interrupted gently. "I just held a mirror up to her. A mirror that reflected the prejudice and ugliness of her own rules. What she felt wasn't humiliation. It was the vertigo of seeing her world turned upside down. So I told her. About my mother. About the cleaning, the rough hands, the quiet dignity. I told her how that saleswoman's attitude was like an echo of 1,000 small assaults I'd witnessed my mother suffer. What I did today, Julia, wasn't for you. It was for her memory. You just had the bad luck of being in the wrong place at the right time." She fell silent, and then I saw a tear roll down her face. "My mom cleans too," she whispered. "That's why I'm doing this job, to pay for her college education, which she had to drop out of to raise me." At that moment, the connection between us became something much deeper than that of boss and employee. We were two of Lucius's children. Today, 6 months later, Julia's life is different. She still works for me, but not as a housekeeper. She's the most brilliant intern in my design and user experience department. Her college education and her mother's are paid for. She has a natural talent for understanding people, for seeing beyond the surface. The Florentine Nocturne scarf was delivered to the Empress, along with the full story of how it was chosen. She was so touched by the gesture that she not only signed the contract, but also became a major funder of the women's shelter, where I sent the other garments. Sometimes I pass by the Éclat boutique. I heard Veronica was transferred. The store's policy, they say, has changed. The truth is, wealth doesn't give you the right to be arrogant. Quite the opposite. It gives you the responsibility to be kind. True power isn't in being able to buy an entire store. It's in having the sensitivity to see the value in someone the world insists on ignoring. The woman at the door said only those with money were allowed in. She was right, but for the wrong reason. That day, the one who truly had the wealth wasn't me. It was Julia, with her intelligence, her grace, and her story. I was just the guy who, by luck, was there to pay the bill. Did you enjoy this story? Share your thoughts in the comments below and tell us which city you're listening from. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel so we can build a community that shares inspiring stories together. Thank you so much for watching.